The air in the valley had a new taste. It was late summer, but the taste was wrong. It was sharp, clean, like a promise of something far away but coming fast. Caleb Hargrove stood by the creek, not moving. He was a man built like the trees around him, solid, quiet. His eyes weren't on the water. They were on the far ridge, where the first aspen leaves were just starting to turn. They were yellowing too high up the slope. He'd seen that before. Once. He listened. That was the other thing. The silence, the chattering of the ground squirrels, the constant background noise of the high country. It was thinning. It was like the land itself was holding its breath. The other men in the camp didn't notice, or they chose not to. The camp was a busy, noisy place. The smell of fresh-cut pine and smoke filled the air. It was 1870, and the rush was on. The fur trade was still good in these remote mountains, and every man here was in a race. A race against the first snow. A race to get a cabin up, a trapline set, a season secured. Caleb walked back into the chaos. Hammers rang out, men shouted orders and laughed. They were building shelters, simple, fast, functional. A four-wall box with a chimney. Get it done in a week, get to work, that was the way. He watched a young trapper, Elias, notch a log. The cut was rough, hurried, the gap would be wide. "Wind'll sing through that," Caleb said, his voice low. Elias grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Wind'll sing through anything up here, old man. I'll chink it with mud when I get a minute. Winter's a long way off." Caleb didn't answer. He just looked past Elias, to the north, a long way off. Maybe not. He spent the next days walking, not trapping, not building, watching. He saw the elk herds moving down from the high meadows, not in their usual lazy groups. They were bunched tight, moving with a purpose he hadn't seen in years. He found a sheltered grove where a band of mountain bluebirds nested every summer. The nests were empty, abandoned. He mentioned it that night by the fire. Just a simple observation. Bluebirds are gone from the cedar grove, early. A trapper named Briggs snorted, turning a rabbit on a spit. "Birds are flighty, Hargrove. Probably found better bugs down the valley. You're reading tea leaves." Others chuckled. Caleb just stared into the flames. He wasn't reading tea leaves. He was reading the land, and the land was whispering a single clear word: hurry. But not their kind of hurry. Their hurry was about speed. His hurry was about strength. The decision settled in his gut like a cold stone. It would cost him time, energy, the season's early trapping, the laughter of every man in the valley. He saw his own planned cabin site, a good spot, sheltered by a rock face. He saw the simple, quick structure he'd sketched in his mind. Then he let that image dissolve. In its place, he saw something else. Thick walls, not one layer of logs, but two with a dead air space between them. A roof not just of poles and sod, but reinforced with a steep pitch to shed not just snow, but weight, insulation. Not just mud chinking, but layers of it mixed with dry grass, packed into every conceivable gap. It was excessive. It was paranoid. To the others, it would be madness. The first frost came, not a gentle dusting at dawn. It was a hard, white frost that killed the last wildflowers black and crunched underfoot at midday. It came a full 3 weeks early. That was the final sign. The whisper became a clear voice. That night, as the other men drank and talked of the furs they'd catch, Caleb sat alone sharpening his axe. Not the small trapping axe, the big felling axe. Its blade caught the firelight. He knew what he had to build, and he knew what it would look like to everyone else. A waste. A foolish diversion. But he also knew, with a certainty that chilled him more than the early frost, what was coming. This would not be a normal winter. This would not be a season of manageable storms and deep snows that tested a man. This would be something else, something that didn't test, it judged. It would be a winter that asked one question, and one question only. Are you ready? And it would ask that question only once. There would be no second chances. No time to fix a drafty wall when the wind screamed at 40 below. No opportunity to reinforce a roof when it was buried under 10 feet of snow. If your answer was wrong, the winter would not argue. It would not negotiate. It would simply take. The common path, the quick cabin, the rushed job, the hope that it'll be enough. That path was a trap. A comfortable, well-trodden trap. And everyone was walking right into it. Caleb looked from his sharp axe to the laughing men, their faces glowing in the firelight. They saw a long, profitable season ahead. He saw a line in the snow, a point of no return. Once the true cold set in, once the mountains locked down in ice, there would be no going back. No fixing, no changing your mind. Your preparation, or your lack of it, would be your entire world. It would be the only thing standing between you and the endless, silent cold. His dilemma was clear, and it was terrible. He could follow the common path, do what everyone else was doing, build fast, trap early, earn their camaraderie, and bet his life that the whispers of the land were just his imagination. Bet his life that the old, deep cold he remembered from a childhood tale was just a story. Or he could do the thing that looked like madness. He could turn away from the season's start. He could invest everything, his time, his labor, his reputation, into a fortress of wood and mud that everyone would mock. He could choose a lonely, difficult certainty over a crowded, comfortable gamble. He finished sharpening the axe. The edge was perfect. It gleamed. He had made his choice. The laughter started almost immediately. While other cabins rose in a matter of days, Caleb's site was just a cleared patch of earth. He was digging. Not a shallow foundation, but a deep, level trench. Briggs walked over one afternoon, hands on his hips. "Planning to bury yourself, Hargrove? Save the winter the trouble?" Caleb kept working. He didn't explain that the trench was for the first course of logs, to keep them from direct ground moisture and rot. He just worked. When he started laying the logs for the inner wall, they were massive. He'd selected them for straightness and thickness, not speed. Each notch was cut with slow, precise strokes. The gaps were so tight you could barely slide a knife blade between them. Elias came by, his own simple cabin already finished, smoke curling from its chimney. "You know," he said, trying to be friendly, "you're missing the prime early trapping. The martens are moving. You could have a dozen pelts by now." Caleb nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. He knew. He felt the passing days like a physical weight. Every sunrise he wasn't on the trap line was money left on the mountain, but he just lifted another log into place. The real puzzlement began when he finished the inner wall and started building a second one, 4 inches outside the first. The men from the camp would stop and stare. It made no sense. It was double the work, double the wood. "He's building 2 cabins," someone joked. "One for him, one for his ghost." Caleb worked in the heart of that space between the walls. He packed it, not just with the usual mud and moss, but with dry duff from the forest floor, with crushed, dry leaves, with anything that would trap still, dead air. Insulation, a blanket for his house. The roof was the final absurdity. Instead of a simple lean-to of poles and sod, he built a steep, sturdy frame. He layered it with birch bark, then more poles, then a thick mat of sod cut deep with the grass roots woven together. It was heavy, impossibly heavy. It looked like he was building a bunker to withstand a cannonade, not a winter snow. The last of the aspen leaves fell. A light snow dusted the peaks. The other trappers were out every day, their lines yielding the first furs of the season. Their cabins were warm, their larders filling. They had been right. Caleb had been wrong. The season was proceeding normally. He felt the doubt then, a cold knot in his stomach that had nothing to do with the weather. What if they were right? What if this was all the foolishness of an old suspicious man? He had sacrificed an entire season's head start for a feeling, a hunch. He finished the cabin just as the first real storm swept in. It was an early November blizzard, fierce but not unusual. He sat inside his fortress listening. The wind howled down from the peaks. It hit his cabin, and it stopped. Oh, it still screamed over the roof. It still rattled the world outside. But inside the double walls, the sound was muted. A distant complaint. There was no whistle through the chinking, no draft. The single small fireplace, centered on the inner stone chimney he'd built with such care, kept the space not just warm, but deeply, evenly comfortable. He burned one log where another man might burn three. The storm passed. The others emerged, digging out their doorways, patching new drafts the wind had found. Caleb simply opened his door. Then, the true cold arrived. It didn't come with a storm. It came with silence. A high pressure settled over the mountains. The sky cleared to a hard, brittle blue, and the temperature began to fall. It dropped past 0, past 20 below. It kept falling. The world became still and sharp and deadly. This was the test, not a blizzard's rage, but the deep cold's slow, suffocating grip. Caleb went about his small chores. He checked his modest woodpile, sheltered under an eave. He melted snow for water. His breath hung in the air, but inside the walls held the heat. The dead airspace was doing its job. It was a barrier, a shield. He began to hear things, or rather, he stopped hearing things. The usual sounds of the camp, the distant chopping of wood, the occasional shout, they faded. The cold was silencing the valley. One morning he saw smoke. A thin, frantic column from Elias's cabin, a half-mile down the valley. Then it stopped abruptly by mid-afternoon. The next day, no smoke at all. Caleb knew what it meant. The fireplace, built too fast, had likely cracked or drawn poorly. The chinking had failed. The cold had won. Elias would be burning his furniture by now, trying to stay alive. Days later, a figure stumbled through the deep snow towards his cabin. It was Briggs. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a fear Caleb had never seen in him. Frost clung to his beard. Briggs didn't speak at first. He just stood in Caleb's doorway, feeling the wave of solid, trapped heat wash over him. He looked past Caleb, into the cabin. He saw the solid walls, the secure roof, the small, efficient fire. My cabin. Briggs started, his voice a rasp. The roof. The weight of the snow, it's sagging. I can hear it groaning. And the wind, it finds every hole. He swallowed. Elias. We got him to my place. We're all in there, burning everything. It's not enough. He wasn't asking for help. He was just stating a fact, the fact of his failure. Caleb stepped back. Come in. That was the proof. It wasn't a celebration. It was a quiet, grim validation. His madness was now the only warm space for miles. His excessive preparation was the only thing that worked. The winter did not relent. It was as brutal and unforgiving as he had feared. It showed no mercy. It asked its one question, "Are you ready?" and collected its price from those who had answered wrong. Caleb's cabin stood. A quiet, stubborn fact in the white silence. He had observed what others ignored. He had prepared while others profited. He had acted on a truth only he believed. And when the extreme arrived, he was not surprised. He was simply ready. The lesson wasn't about building a better cabin. It was about listening. It was about the courage to see a different path when the common one looks so easy. It was about understanding that when the context changes, when a gentle winter becomes a brutal one, the old rules break. What looked like madness to the crowd was just foresight. What do you do when you see a change others ignore? Do you follow the crowd, hoping the old ways will hold? Or do you trust what you see and build your walls twice as thick? Let me know in the comments. And tell me, what's the weather like where you're listening to this story today?